All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Me and Money podcast. Elliott, how's it going?
It's going well over here. Yourself?
Yeah, can't complain. It's feeling like spring finally. So
It's definitely getting humid here.
yeah. If it's not the cold, it's the humidity. That's for sure.
Yep.
All right. You suggested this topic the other day. I think this is a good one, and I don't know if it ever really goes away. So why don't you share what was on your mind, and we'll just have a conversation about it.
I feel like a lot of people feel like they're behind, whether it's in savings goals, investment goals, anything like, oh, I don't have X saved, right? We read those studies of you should have X saved by the time you're 30 or 35 or 50 or retired or, these general rules. And I think both of us agree we generally don't like general rules because personal finance is personal and everybody's a little bit different. But I think there's this sentiment of I'm X age, I don't have this much saved, or I feel like I should have more. I feel like I'm behind. And I see a lot of posts like that online. And that was sort of my inspiration for this is let's say you are 40 or you're 50 and you only have insert the blank saved. What do you do? Where do you go from there?
Yeah. So I love the question. Like, where do you want to start with this one? How do we want to approach this topic? Because I think there's a lot of ways we could go. Like, there's certainly psychology going on, behavior of how we're spending our money, what we're doing with our money. There's all sorts of fun things we can dig into. So, if you were feeling that, where would you start?
I mean, I'm probably not the average person because I like living in spreadsheets. So I wouldn't recommend this. I wouldn't recommend just jumping into a spreadsheet, but I think it is important to take a step back and figure out where are you today? And if this goes into the future and you follow these same patterns, what does that look like 10 or 20 years from now? And that could be either working with a financial planner to figure that out, DIY approach, dare I say maybe an AI tool and see how that works out. I don't know at this point how well they do that, but some sort of retirement calculator maybe online is a better use of that. Because I know there's plenty of those good ones to say, hey, if I have this much saved, I assume X rate of return, where does that put me? And what does that mean in terms of income at that point? I think that's really important because I think a lot of times people feel behind, but if you keep projecting into the future, you might be surprised where you actually get when you add 10 or 20 years to that compounding, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are surprised by that. At least that's been my experience sometimes. It's like, oh, I'm not where I want to be today, but in 20 years, it doesn't look so bad, actually.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I would probably take a very different approach to that.
Let's hear it.
The only reason I think those are great things that we're going to have to get to at some point in time, but I think the better question is like, why do you feel behind? Like, what's missing?
Yeah.
Is anything missing? If not, like, what's feeding that feeling? Is it what you're reading on Reddit? Is it the terrible thing of, Instagram where you see people taking vacations seemingly all the time and they look like they have it all together? Maybe you just need to go on a vacation, and if you can afford that vacation, like, great, like, problem solved. Maybe we don't even need to do the calculators. I don't know.
Yeah. I like
But
that.
I think a lot of times it's very easy to feel, and numbers don't take away the feelings. Like, it's kind of the ironic thing about what we do. Like, I think a lot of people come to us for number help, and then it's really just like the questions we ask that help the numbers make more sense, and we can provide some clarity on what it is they're trying to do. And the reason why I would go that way is we've both seen it, like the people who have all the money in the world and they're never going to spend it all, and yet they feel like they can't give to charity. They feel like they can't give it to their kids before they die. They feel like they're restricted in some way. So I think that's where I would start. Like, what is the restriction? Like, what's making you feel like there's some obstacle in front of you that you can't overcome? And let's just start there.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great way to start because I think you hit the nail on the head. It used to be you just saw what was going on around you, right? Like in your neighborhood or your school district or your work. And nowadays you read and see video of a billionaire going on a vacation on a giant yacht that you're never going to have, right? Like it's a strange thing compared to what it used to be.
Right. Well, not only that, but if you only check your Instagram a couple times a week or a couple times a month, like I don't use those tools very much, but maybe it just so happens that the 2 times I logged in, I saw my friend Patrick was taking a trip, and it's like, oh geez, is that all Patrick does is like travel? But I when we just used to talk to each other, it's like, oh no, like I saw Patrick in his yard like this whole month, like he hasn't been anywhere. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think and that's the troubling thing with social media too, is it is very curated, right? Like people aren't showing themselves staying at the office till 10 o'clock, right? And I think
That doesn't get views.
no, it doesn't. And you don't have time to do it, quite frankly, right? Because you're probably busting your butt at work. So yeah, I think that's a good place to start. But I want to go into your spreadsheets next, because I think there is something to that. So and this is, again, I'm just very biased. Like, I think a lot of times people, when they feel crunched, like, or they feel like maybe there's been a heavy month of expenses or a heavy season of expenses, and money feels tight, I think that can cascade into, well, I haven't been saving enough for retirement. Am I going to have to do this forever? Do I
Yeah.
hate my job and I'm never going to be able to retire? I think a lot of times, like, those pain points can make it feel like we're not doing anything, but that's not always the case. I'm not going to say it's never the case, because I think there are people who are just not thinking about it. But what would you say about that, just in your experience with either talking to people or working with clients?
Yeah, when you said that, it sort of reminded me of, I think we're all naturally inclined to believe that whatever we're experiencing, we're going to forecast that into the future, right? As a like it's hard to forecast 5 years or 10 years, but take a moment as we're talking and think, where was I 10 years ago? And this could be financially, fitness, relationships, like any area of your life. Where were you 10 years ago, or 5 years, or 20 years ago? And just think about how different, I'm guessing for most people, how different that is compared to where you are today. And what are the small actions? Because I think that's where I want to focus to, are what are the small changes that you can make that you may not feel day to day, hour to hour, week to week, but you keep doing those over 5 years, 10 years. Where does that get you? 20 or 30, depending on the time frame we're talking about. But even 5 years, where does that get you 5 years? And I think we underestimate a lot of the time what 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day or those small micro actions can do when they start to compound. And that's where I like setting up that financial plan and looking at that, because then you can start, at least financially, but you could do this in any other area of your life, right? If it's an extra $10 a month and you invest that or you save that or whatever, right? Whatever goal you're working towards, where does that get you in the next 5 or 10 years? And how does that compare to the 5 and 10 years before that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. And that's where I think, like, it's this point in time where the calculators do start to matter, because especially if you're younger, or maybe you've put off saving for retirement and it feels like you're doing all this work just to see nothing happen. Like, that's where you can see the crazy thing of compounding interest towards the end. And I'll never forget this 2 years ago. Like, I had a conversation with a fairly young client, and they were so pumped to break $100,000 in net worth, which is a massive achievement.
Yeah,
And I
that's
said, the
amazing.
crazy thing is, like, we're going to be celebrating 200,000, like, in the next 3 to 5 years. And they didn't believe me. And I mean, the market's been very good for the past handful of years, so it actually happened even faster than I thought it was going to happen, just based on how much they save. And then they just sent me an email the other day, like, did you see the net worth? It's already over 200. I'm like, yeah, like, that's awesome. So yeah, and I think it was a Bill Gates quote, like, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we dramatically underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And I think that's your point, right?
Yeah.
Like, small actions over a long period of time have, like, extraordinary consequences, and they can be good consequences too.
Or they can be bad, depending on how you approach it.
Right. I was trying to go positive.
No, I love it. But I think that's also a reminder that if you don't take action, right, if you just ignore it and do nothing, that nothingness also compounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where something oftentimes is better than doing nothing. There are cases where doing nothing is better, but we're talking about some improvement or something where, even some step forward, even if it doesn't feel like it's enough, right? Say you run the calculator and you're like, oh, I need to save $500 a month. There's no way I can save $500 a month. So you're like, well, I'm going to spend $500. Well, what if you could spend 100?
It's just 1 month. It's just one trip. It's
exactly. But what if you could do 100 and then you're like the next month, oh, that wasn't too bad. I could do 150. And then, a year later you get a raise. You're like, oh, I don't need to spend as much as I was. It's too like all of those are getting you closer to the goal as opposed to compounding farther away.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's the other like cliche, like the hardest thing about going to the gym is deciding to go to the gym. Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like psychological research. I sometimes struggle with like procrastination, right? Like
for sure. I'm there with
you. If I don't have a deadline, I'm just not going to do it. I need like the, fight or flight to get me going. But I think even just maybe spending some time on understanding where you do procrastinate and paying attention to that, like it can help you just say like, nope, I just got to do it. Like I just got to save $100. Like I'm just going to make that transfer today, not wait until the end of the month when there's nothing left. And I think too, like, budgeting sucks and it's not fun, but if you could just like spend the first time doing it, like spend an hour getting how you want your budget to speak to you and to give you information set up, it can really take 5 to 10 minutes a week to classify your transactions and get it done. And I guarantee anyone who's not budgeting will feel better having some insight into like where your money's going.
I love that language, Matt. I think it is have your budget speak to you.
Well, it's true, right? Like what story do you want it? Like what information do you want from it? Right? Like rather than it being this arduous chore of like, oh my God, like I have to like put all these things in a spreadsheet. Like, no, get a free tool or get a cheap, like Monarch Money's good. Just set it up so that it's auto classifying your transactions because you're probably doing a lot of the same things in a month. And then it will just tell you how much you're spending. And if you feel behind that you're not traveling enough because you're spending all your money somewhere else, like just stop spending it somewhere else and just take the damn trip, Now I gotta put the explicit tag on this one.
So Matt, I feel like we shift a little into the more concrete or tactical things we can do. So
make a budget.
Make a budget is one. What else would you do?
If you don't have an emergency fund or at least a couple months of spending in the bank, get one of those. Like it's great. It's so funny because you see all the things on Reddit about how I just made $100,000 in my options tradings, today, and how euphoric that must feel. But I really think a lot of the peace of mind comes from that first 3 to 6 months of living expenses and knowing that if you lose your job, it's not game over and you're going to be like running on fumes and trying to find a job. If you do then start saving in a brokerage account or retirement, you can weather the storm and keep that going too if you want to, if that emergency hits. It's going to really just help you stick to the small actions that you need to stick to. I'll stop there. Where would you start?
I am going to add, not necessarily start differently, but I guess you could start this way. I would say, and I know it might be awkward, incorporate a friend.
I love that.
I wish we had more money conversations around with friends, family, like whoever you want to include in your social circle, because there's that accountability piece and that teamwork and sort of joint achievement that you get to celebrate with someone, right? If I just go do my budget, I mean, maybe I get to celebrate with my spouse and that's great. But at the same time, like, what if we just opened this up and had more honest conversations around money? It's like, hey, I am struggling to save for retirement, or I can't take that vacation. And you start to like have a set date with this friend to work towards that. Like maybe you're categorizing transactions together or something like that. I think that's really powerful because when you do things by yourself, like you're only accountable to yourself. And sometimes that works for people, but a lot of times that peer pressure, if you will, works pretty darn well.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm actually going to agree with you. Like that should be step one because I mean, we were talking about it before the show, but I was thinking about buying a different house and like I ran the numbers about 10 different ways only to keep getting the same answer. But I just needed to ask Elliott, like, does my math sound right? Like, and then I felt much better. And that's really what we do. So
yeah. That's a great example of like just having a second person be your eyes and ears on an issue can be great. And maybe it's more accountability to save more or spend more, or like whatever it is. I just wish we had more of those and it wasn't such a taboo topic in the US.
100%. Okay, so we find a friend, make a budget, build an emergency fund if you don't have one, then what?
I don't know if this is then what, but I want to throw it out there and you can tell me where it fits in the piece. But I would celebrate the wins along the way. I think a lot of us wait until the very end of like, I achieved the big goal. What are the smaller goals that we can break this down into and actually celebrate some successes along the way? Because look, you may like back to my original example. If you're trying to save $500 a month, maybe you don't get there immediately. But if you go from 0 to 100, that's also a big win. Like I want to celebrate that.
That's infinite percent.
Yeah, infinite. So like take those key milestones and make it fun, right? If you're doing a budgeting night with a friend, maybe that's the day like you set aside money for eating out. Maybe that's the day that you do it, or you enjoy wine, or whatever it is. Incorporate some things that you like to do with this, because I know this isn't the most fun. So for a lot of people, I suggest make it a fun date night.
Yeah. And I say the same thing with like, shall we say, spending conversations instead of budgeting.
Yeah, I like that.
Like make it fun. Like go get a beer, go get a appetizer. Like it's a lot more fun than going to the gym and you can make it as fun as you want. Just as long as it's within the spending plan, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. Yeah, set some milestones. Like enjoy it along the way, and I think that's too where if you have a friend or some accountability partner, like making them a part of it can just be a good excuse to get together and go have fun with it.
Yeah. Matt, I have a question. I'm curious your thoughts on this. I don't know if I have a strong opinion either way, but I know some people do extreme accountability, meaning if they don't reach a goal, some severe consequence. You can sort of name whatever that is. What are your thoughts?
I mean, okay, I'll play ball on this one. I think for the right people, like they do need that extreme motivation. I think that's where like Dave Ramsey has certainly found his audience. Like,
yeah.
I don't think Dave does anything bad. Do I think he does it the way I would do it, or is he kind in how he does it? My answer would be probably not. But some people don't. I don't know. I just kind of think back to sports, like, or even the mentors I've had in the past. Like, I'm not a very confrontational person, but I do work best with someone who's going to give me very direct feedback. I don't want to be like, oh, it's okay, you'll get them next time. Like, no, like, you messed up. Like, what are you going to do to fix it? Like, that's the kind of feedback I need. So I think just understanding like what your personality style is, or looking back on like who's been able to successfully motivate you in life, like that could be a good indication of, if I don't hit this goal, I have to do 100 push-ups, or, the groups where if I don't do whatever, I have to send you $100 check or whatever. Like, it's fine. It works for some people, but I don't think some people like the carrot better than the stick, and some people need the stick, not the carrot.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is figure out how you're motivated and then set up things in a way that will make you successful in this journey.
Yeah, that'd be no different than me saying, like, when you get your emergency fund, go take a trip. Like, well, I don't like travel. Like, well, okay. Like, what do you want to do then? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a good point, though. I like just finding your accountability system.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that you do? If you're feeling behind, you have to get to a place where you feel good. Is there anything else that you do?
I think just really pay attention to, like, as you're going through this and paying more attention to where your money's going and how it's being used. Like, just pay attention to where I always tell my clients, like, when you're doing the spending plan conversations, like, pick out the thing that was your favorite use of money and your least favorite use of money, and just understand that you have to constantly refine that. People do take up new hobbies as they go through life. And I know you're taking a knife making class or something, right, Elliot?
Yeah, later this year.
Maybe you get 6 months down the road and you just look back at that and you're like, like, I'm not really pumped about this anymore. Like, what should I be doing instead? Or what can I do instead that would be more interesting? Like, I think a lot of people just kind of get stuck in habits or hobbies that they don't really enjoy anymore. And it feels more like work, or they're just not energized to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And those dollars could be better used somewhere else. So just pay attention.
Okay. Anything else?
Work with the financial planner. I mean, we don't do too many plugs on the show, but I couldn't tell you like how many times over the years of having the firm where it's just like, my clients really do appreciate when I just say like, that doesn't sound like you. Like, are you sure you want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm hearing this and I'm hearing this thing too. Like, which one is it? And ultimately, as the world changes around you, like, your plans are going to change. What you need to do to make your plan work is going to change. And I just go back to our conversation about the house. Like, I do this for a living. My numbers were accurate as could be, but I still needed someone to tell me it was okay. And if that's what you need, that's what you need. And you need to pay someone to help you through that and monitor and be your second set of eyes and ears, because I can't see my own blind spots and none of us can.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're also hitting on a topic, but not saying it directly, about having someone help you figure out what's important and aligning your money with that. And as it changes, is it still important, or have things changed? And how am I going to spend it going forward?
Yeah. And just asking, like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, it's, sometimes a question as simple as I can be like, oh, no, like, I like the idea of that, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We all have ideas, right?
Yeah.
Too
and
many.
Whether they're what we really want to do, or it's because we're seeing someone else doing it, it looks fun.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Or, and I guess I do have a story on that. It was actually another financial planner. He wanted to buy a car, like an expensive car. He's not really that kind of person. I'm just like, really? Like, are you sure you want to do that? And he's like, I feel guilty doing it, but I still want the car. And I said, well, okay, like, is there like a middle ground here? Like, could you go rent that car for 2 weeks? Like, I know it's going to be insanely expensive. It's going to be way more than the car payment, but can you just go do that instead and see if you actually want the car? And he did it. And the conclusion he came to at the end was he didn't want the car. He's like, it was really cool. Like, I'm glad I rented it. Like, it was fun for a week, but then it just kind of felt the same. And so now I don't need to buy the car. Right. So I think that's something too, but that's more of a fulfillment question. And that kind of goes back to where I started. Like, why do you feel like you're behind? And I'm willing to bet that a fair amount of people who say that, like, maybe they just want to be on the other, like, in a new chapter of life. Like, maybe they just need to make a career change and go do something that they enjoy and can see themselves doing for, a long, long time, versus, oh my gosh, like, I am not going to be able to retire in 5 years because I hate this job.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting. Everyone's different. And I think there's a lot of psychology that goes into it too.
For sure. And I like that you brought that up and gave a perfect example of sometimes it's good to test these things and see, is this a long-term decision that I want to make, or maybe a short-term decision to try it out's okay. And that gives me the information I need.
Yeah. And that's the fun part about money. Like, it is the expression of who you are, right? And you just have to make it work for you.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect place to wrap up.
All right. Well, it's good to see you, Elliot. We'll pick up in the next one.
Sounds good.